So I looked at a map and I found out that when my great-great-grandfather crossed the railroad track, last week I shared the story of the soldier who was found out here in Franklin, just maybe less than a mile from where I am. And this story was given to me by chance. Or was it? Did you see in the video all the Union or U.S. troops and the Confederates? They came together. The Union was preserved. But I've been doing a lot of research, and as I did that, if you recall, there were a couple of old men in that video. If you don't know which video I'm talking about, go look for episode 124 of Fallen American. And those old men were a connection to the past because their dads both fought in the Civil War. As I was doing that research, something caught my eye. It was kind of a horrifying feeling to realize that when my great-great-grandfather crossed the railroad tracks, the Stiles Brigade would be just over there. Is there a connection between those families and my family? Now, let's get into who the characters in today's story are going to be. Well, there is me, born in 1955. There is Harold Becker, I think born around 1913, 1916. I'm going to get those confused till I look them up. There is James Brown. Born about that same time. Quite a few years between their births and mine. Other characters are going to be James Brown's father, who was born in the 1840s. Ready? And then there's going to be Harold Becker's father. Records show that he was in the Union Army, who was also born in the 1840s. And one final character, the one that I'm always trying to discover, my great-great-grandfather, Napoleon Bonaparte Trenner, who was born in 1830 in Sinking Creek, Virginia. I know where my great-great-grandfather had entered this particular battle. He had just come over Winstead Hill from Spring Hill down there. And then they were given the orders for a frontal assault. We could see the Union soldiers, artillery lined up just about a mile down the road here. Great-great-grandfather in the 3rd Mississippi, they were sent to go by the Carnton Plantation and over here by the Harpeth River. Behind me is the Harpeth River. After marching all night long and coming over Winstead Hill, General Hood prepared for a frontal assault. There was no place to hide. The fields were open, but there's a witness that seems to think that the 3rd Mississippi, maybe some others, were walking along here by the Harpeth where there was a lot of tree cover. And in this tree cover, they felt somewhat secure, except off to their left, the fields of the Carnton plantation were being bombarded with artillery from downtown Franklin and also from Fort Granger. My great-great-grandfather had been in this war for 3 years. He'd heard a lot of noise. He'd heard a lot of artillery. He was accustomed to the sound of gunshots and the sound of bombs exploding all around him. He'd survived 3 years already in this war, and now he was a corporal. The corporals were given the flag. They were the color bearers. They achieved that rank because of their bravery. I like to think that he was a brave man. Not sure exactly why he was fighting, other than he was fighting for his piece of ground in the state of Mississippi. He had no slaves. So they're coming along in these woods. There's all this noise going off, these explosions. It's 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Smoke from all the explosions is beginning to obscure their vision somewhat, even though they are protected by the woods. And now they get up to the railroad track. What's waiting for them on the other side of the railroad track? Let's go on up to the railroad and see what we can find out. Behind me, you can see where the road crosses the railroad track, right along the Harpeth River, and often the roads would follow the river. The main breakthrough was down here at Columbia Pike. Union forces were on both sides of Columbia Pike, but they did not they did not close up the road itself. And that's where many of the Confederates were trying to break through. But here we're half a mile from that, and the Mississippi regiment would have been coming up this way and possibly crossed right here. In the last episode, I showed you an old man who attended the Civil War funeral here in Franklin. The man's name was Harold Becker. His daddy's name was Charles Conrad Becker. Records showed that he was in the Union Army, and then records showed that he was here April 30th, 1864, the day of the battle. Where was he? So I began to do some research, and when I saw the name Styles Brigade, that kind of rang a bell. So I looked at a map, and I found out that when my great-great-grandfather crossed the railroad track, Styles Brigade was right there. They had heavy artillery lined up, and the Union was looking at it since the Confederates were so close they were no longer lobbing heavy shells or mortars a mile away or several hundred feet away or several hundred yards away. They were filling the cannons with shrapnel. So when my great-great-grandfather came over that railroad track, Stiles Brigade was not 100 feet away. They were right there. From what I can tell, they were right there at the top of that embankment. Great-great-grandfather carried that flag over, as did several other corporals. What would he tell me today? Was it worth it? I've really been struggling with how to end this video. I'm at the graveyard. This is great-great-grandfather's final resting place. How he got here after that battle, the Confederate burial detail put him somewhere on this plantation. They placed bodies in groups of the states. They put wooden headboards there, and those wooden headboards didn't last long. It was a cold winter. Those wooden headboards, some were removed and used for firewood. A couple of years later, the McGavick family, who live here in the plantation house, reinterred these bodies. He's laying right behind me. Perhaps he's laying under my feet. What would he tell me? Now, what would I like to tell him? I know it was tough what you did. I'd like you to know that after your death, your wife gave birth to James Alexander. Now, what you know, I don't know what happened to your wife. I've tried to find out what happened to her. I can't find anything. And now me, I'm standing here thinking, what can I do? Our country's in trouble again. On the verge of civil war, it seems like. You know those freedoms that I think you would have told me to maintain? We have an enemy within our country, living inside our borders, in our halls of legislature. They're trying to destroy what you believed in. I don't say you believed in slavery or you didn't believe in slavery. I don't know. But you must have believed in maintaining your rights. So great-great-grandfathers, I stand here on your grave. What would you tell me? Corporal NBT, what would you tell me? I think you'd say, do everything you can to maintain your freedom. I don't want you to have died in vain. Maybe I can do my part to prolong freedom a little bit longer. But I do salute you